We are families, we are caregivers, we are parents to children with disabilities and medical complexities. We are rarely familiar. We get together to learn, to relate, and to laugh a lot while we share each other's unique family experiences of raising the rarest of the rare. Our goal is to unite, inspire, educate, and empower people living a rarely familiar life. And we're so glad you're here.
Hi, welcome to Rarely Familiar. This is Jen here with my friend Haley, where we dig into the realities of raising the rarest of the rare. Today, we're going to get familiar with the psychological impact of raising a medically complex child or disabled child, something many parents and caregivers experience, but we often just don't talk about it. So today, we're going to have a conversation I've wanted to have for a long time because it's both personal and incredibly important. I'm excited to be joined by Dr. Natalie Marr, not just an expert in this space, but also a colleague and friend. So I know this discussion is going to be honest, nuanced, and real. But first, let's check in. Haley, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. We had our big transition summit on Monday. It's always a great day to connect with leaders in the community, people who work in the disability space, people who work in the healthcare space. So a lot of different people came together on Monday to talk about pediatric to adult transition, which is a huge topic. What happens when our kids transition from pediatric care into adult care, and when they start transitioning from children to adults, and everything changes. So we get together once a year to talk about what that all entails and share insights and knowledge. So that was a great day. But today, this is really cool. You know how kids at that last week of school, they have a field day? Right? There's 8 kids who are wheelchair users in Felix's school.
Wow.
And field days don't really work for our kids. I know Julian's pretty able-bodied, but Felix has mobility challenges, and a lot of kids in his school do too. So a couple of the special education teachers got together, a couple of the therapists got together, and they're like, we're going to do a DAPE field day. Now, I don't know if does Julian do DAPE at school?
He does DAPE, yes, for PE.
So it's adaptive gym, but they got together and they did a whole DAPE day. And my phone's been blowing up with pictures of the adaptive bikes they had. And I cannot say enough about my kids' grade school. They have worked so hard to make sure it is a really inclusive and compassionate environment. So that's what I've got going on today.
Well, that's exciting. I love that they're doing that. I'm planning to attend the summit next year when I'm closer to transition time for Julian. Dr. Gormley, who I just had an appointment with him for Julian, he said, you can wait a year, Jen, because I'm so busy right now. But my big news this week is that my eldest is home from college. And so it just feels like the house is complete. There's just a level of calmness and just this kind of full feeling. But again, I'm kind of burning the candle at both ends now because my older son is, let's stay up and let's go outside and look at the moon. And it's midnight and I'm getting up at 6 a.m. with Julian. I'm like, okay, this is going to be challenging. So back to this kind of balancing act for me, but it's really exciting. So I'm very happy to have
a huge help to you when he's home. So
he is, and he's Julian's caregiver this summer, his PCA. So that is huge. And yeah, my summer is going to be very supported. And so I'm also just aware of that, not just personally in the house, but also just professionally for work and everything. But let's dig into our show today because I'm super excited. And I know we have a hard stop. So today we are joined by Dr. Natalie Marr, who we will refer to as Dr. Natalie during the show. Dr. Natalie is a clinical psychologist in the state of Minnesota. But she also offers nationwide coaching and educational services through learntoloveyourstory.com, which I want to hear more about. Her vast experience in a variety of evidence-based approaches is eclipsed only by her intuitive ability to cultivate one's own curiosity, growth, and wisdom. But she also provides significant insights that foster an understanding of oneself. Dr. Natalie is also a university professor, which is how I know her, and a mother of 2. So very busy, a lot on her plate. And finally, you may know Dr. Natalie from her own podcast called The Centered Midlife, Reclaiming Our Worth from the Inside Out, which I have been listening to and really love. So welcome, Dr. Natalie.
Yes. And thank you
Yay.
both, Haley and Jen, for having me. This is going to be so fun. I'm actually really excited to be here.
Awesome. Good. Well,
Mhm.
I know that we
Dr.
just saw each other in a meeting earlier, so now here we are again
I
in a
know.
little different capacity, right?
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
two are colleagues, right? You work for the same
We
university.
are. We work
We
very
do.
closely together.
Yes.
Because it's a department of 2.5 people, and we are two of the 2.5 people.
I'm like, who's the 0.5? Okay, yeah, I know.
So
not even
I'm
sure if
only
it's
just meeting
technically
you for
0.5.
the first time. Jen certainly introduced you, but tell us in your own words a little bit about who you are, what you're busy with.
Sure, sure. I turned 50 this year and I'm reflecting tons this year. Man, I've done a lot. It's kind of crazy when you start to read bios. You're like, oh, yeah, I did that too. I did that thing over there too. I think presently I'm mostly working at the university full time. My coaching business has been smaller. LearnToLoveYourStory.com is still there, and I still have lots of free resources for folks. And then I do the Centered Midlife podcast because it's fun. So that's more stuff that brings me joy. I'm kind of weird that way.
I feel like as we get older, we start collecting these side gigs here.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. But I have a small private practice in St. Louis Park, Hopkins area here in the metro, and see patients maybe 1 or 2 afternoons a week. And then I have these 2 kids that are in 2 different generations. So my Gen Zer is my 22-year-old who's out and doing his own thing, but I'm so proud of the young man that he is becoming. And then I have an 11-year-old that lives with me, my daughter. And I've been a single parent most of my life, married twice, divorced twice. But I've had this kind of experience of being with an only child twice, which is weird.
Yeah.
But I totally empathize with what Jen said earlier. It feels when we're all 3 together, there's something in the energy, like in the air, that just grounds all 3 of us. We usually have a weekly dinner, and it's so lovely to do that on the weekend before I start a work week, because it really just kind of sets my head straight.
That's great. Kids need tradition, that ritual to look forward to. Yeah, love it. Okay, awesome. So about 15 months ago now, my youngest, Julian, had a prolonged seizure that led to catastrophic medical complications. As you're well aware, I had to quit work. I was living in the hospital for 3 months. This was a crisis. And I think the most surprising thing that happened, because I was purely operating in survival mode, right? That my brain just kind of shut down. I had short-term memory challenges. My executive functioning was shot. People had to repeat things, and I just could not sort it out. I just couldn't make sense of it. I was having trouble sleeping, all of the emotional dysregulation, things like that, which is not a surprise. But I think the biggest surprise to me was what was happening to my brain.
This is a common theme throughout our life. We can constantly, in a second, go back into that survival mode. And it's trauma, it's crisis. So it's a very common thing that we are in that crisis mode.
But I guess I would like to know what is happening neurologically and what is happening psychologically to us during these moments, whether they're prolonged or acute, I guess.
Yeah, when you gave me this question to ponder before I came on the podcast, I was really excited about it. And I get kind of nerdy, girls, so I'm gonna say it. I just get nerdy, but I really find this information to be so helpful for people to understand how it's like you got the owner's manual to the body, right? And not all of us got one of those, because not all of us went to school. The theory that I'm going to talk about today is called the polyvagal nervous system theory, and it's by Dr. Stephen Porges, is a MD that created it. But in my world, I go to Deb Dana, who's a licensed clinical social worker that's created a bunch of helpful tools for folks to do by themselves to regulate, but also for therapists like myself to use with our clients. And the polyvagal nervous system theory is this: there are 3 different states. The first is ventral vagal, which is us feeling like what we just talked about, Jen, where you're grounded and your world is perfect and you're safe and secure and connected to your people. The second is one that all of us are very familiar with. We call it fight or flight. There's actually a variation. It's fight, flight, fawn, fall, and sometimes there's a 5th one that people talk about, but I think fall kind of encapsulates that. And that sympathetic nervous system is our body's way of saying there's a danger it's present right now, and I have to mobilize to fix something. So those four things I just said, you flee, you fight. Fawning is kind of caretaking, obsessive almost caretaking to protect yourself, and then falling, which is a version of what you were just talking about, Jen, where you kind of zone out, but it's still a mobilized version of it. So it's like I have to just numb out for a second because there's a clear and present danger, and it'll help me to kind of shift to the next thing. Then there is the dissociative experience. So ventral vagal, sympathetic nervous system, dorsal vagal nervous system is basically you dissociate. So when our body is in chronic stress, it can't stay there. It is supposed to be a temporary thing. So what the body interprets is, oh, okay, so I have clear and present danger in front of me, but I have to go away because I have to be immobile. There is no way to change the clear and present danger. So the gazelle on the African safari, when they get caught, they fall dead in the lioness's mouth. They literally don't know that they're still living. Their nervous system just shifts off. That's an extreme version of that dissociative experience. The thing that humans can do, oddly enough, is that we can kind of stay online. So we look like we're here, but we're not here. We have these experiences that we call you're derealized. It feels like it's not real. I'm sitting here, I see my family, I'm having a dinner, but I also feel like I'm watching this from afar, right? Those are the kinds of experiences that you have when you have that chronic stress and you can't stay in fight or flight forever. Cortisol, adrenaline, that's a temporary fix. And so if the nervous system can't do it, it starts to flood your nervous system with dopamine, ironically enough, and it numbs us at that point. So your brain fog, your memory deficit might all be interrelated to most of your brain was offline during that time because it had to self-protect. That was the last line of defense that it had. So new memories weren't getting consolidated. New information wasn't coming in. You didn't lose old information you've had. You could be on autopilot in lots of different ways in your routines, but nothing new was really going to come in at that point.
And it's interesting too, because I think you're disassociating, but at the same time, you are being asked to make critical decisions for your child. These are serious things, right? And you have to be really present. So it's like you're two different people. And I will equate it to being in the NICU for months when your child is born. It's a very similar experience because I've had the surgery too. Surgery's gone awry. And I think you really do. You have to be present making decisions, but also your body needs to protect itself. It's a very strange place to be as a human.
It truly is. You catch yourself. One time that I experienced it and really understood it was I was going through my second divorce and I was on autopilot because at the time I divorced, I was only working part-time. And so I needed to start making lots more money so that I could figure out a way to survive. And I have a habit of overworking. And so I went into this survival mode of overworking for a minute. And I would notice on the weekends, I literally was immobile. I could not get off the couch had I wanted to. And I had a 3-year-old and I'm watching this little girl about the house. And I'm like, what is happening that I cannot lift my body off of this place until I would kick back into survival mode and then I'd be in fight. And so then I could be in overworking. Those were my two living states. I was never safe, secure. I was never feeling that way. There was always clear and present danger around me.
So then when that immediate danger is past, and for you, it took a while probably with the divorce and everything, or after surgery with Haley's son or my son or whatever, once that is past, there's not the danger signal going off in your brain. What happens then? Does everything just slowly return to baseline? Because I feel like it took me a long time
Not
to get back to
always.
baseline.
Deb Dina calls it a ladder, and I find it to be the best visual. So ventral vagal is the top of the ladder. This is where we want to be. But we might climb down into that sympathetic nervous system when something is dangerous to us or frightening or threatening. And then we might go into that dissociative state if it's prolonged for a long period of time. To get from dissociated to safe and secure, you cannot go from the bottom of the ladder to the top of the ladder without going through fight or flight again.
Okay.
And there is
That's
a
interesting.
lot about American culture that is always in a hustle, always in a hustle, right? We are
Right.
hustling for our worthiness in what we do for work and trying to be perfect and trying to say the right thing and do the right thing and wear the right clothes and get the right wrinkle cream, whatever your deal is, right? You're in fight or flight a fair amount of the time. And our culture kind of reinforces that. So my guess would be, Jen, that you went from dissociative to that. And that state also is not consolidating a lot of new information. It has that potential. It's not completely dissociated, but it's hard. It's hard to stay even in that sympathetic nervous system state. And I would imagine you were kind of bopping between the two.
Right.
I call that a false sense of security in therapy. You'd come in and tell me, no, I'm fine. Nothing is really bad happening right now, except that your body mind is, what? Julian almost died. What do you mean nothing wrong? That could happen again. That potential just kind of lives in the back of your mind. So you were probably bopping between those two.
Oh, interesting.
There's lots of different things you can do to regulate a nervous system. But the other premise of the polyvagal nervous system theory is connection is key. We are wired as humans to be in our tribes. Full stop. We don't do well when we're isolated. This is why they do that in prisons, right? Isolation is a true punishment. Babies in orphanages that are left in cribs all day have developmental delays that almost never get regained later on in life, because it literally impacts the way that you're neurologically wired. So we're wired to be working with one another. And that's why we call it safe, secure, and connected. The biggest way to get back to ventral vagal is to be around your people. And they have that grounding feature to them. But there's also other things that if your nervous system is easily getting keyed up, that you can be doing to kind of regulate it down.
Well, and that's part of why we're doing what we're doing, because the underlying theme for all of the parents who have kids with disabilities, medical complexities, is isolation. Nobody gets it. Nobody understands. And trying to find your people is impossible.
So hard. So hard.
And so even if you can find people online, or you can throw an earbud in or something to feel like, oh, they get it.
Exactly. My sister's son is developmentally delayed, and she started him in Special Olympics early and still has him in it. She still coaches. And she said that was where they finally found a community of people that understood them.
And I think that those things tend to happen a little bit later in life too. So especially if your child was born with a significant disability, you spend the first several years of your life in isolation.
Because that also is probably, Haley, part of the survival mode, correct? I mean,
absolutely.
You can barely function and put a spoonful of cereal in your mouth, much less go out into the world
Or
like that.
all the cereal in your mouth.
Exactly. Exactly. So unfortunately, some of our inclinations when we're in survival mode also pull us away from our people. This is why I think this science of the polyvagal nervous system is so profound, because the course correction is not the thing that you feel like doing, because your body is doing I'm in danger and I need to get out of danger. It doesn't have a realization of what it feels like to be in ventral vagal, and it's anchoring to that. It's anchoring to fighting and fleeing and fawning, and it wants to do those things. And then when you're exhausted with those things, it dissociates. But unless your conscious awareness tells you to, it doesn't have awareness of, how do I get out of this? How do I anchor back to my people?
So what I'm hearing you say is the way to break the cycle is get yourself around other humans, and not just other humans who you can really feel a true connection with, that get it on a level that other people don't. I mean, until I knew somebody that had several surgeries, had surgeries go wrong, had spent months and months in a hospital, people just cannot possibly understand, nor do I wish they would.
No. But I will say this, there is value to connection at different levels, because it's still connection, right? Still oxytocin. So it translates but neurobiologically to oxytocin, goes through your body. And oxytocin, of the hormone neurotransmitters, is actually at the top of the pack. It overdoes serotonin, overdoes dopamine, overdoes everything. If you want to feel better, be around your people and you'll start to feel better. That's just hard science there. So You could have friendships where they don't get you, but you could go to a movie and just be for 3 hours of your life. And there is power in that. There is oxytocin in that. Does it fix all of this? No. So I think finding your people and finding your tribe is kind of the ultimate level, but you also could just have somebody come over and make a meal and sit with you. And that's
Could you also
connection.
just have that connection with nature? I think for me, that is my grounding exercise every day. I have to get in my body, in the woods as much as I can.
Yeah.
But does that also ground a person? It's just that kind of
It
release of
regulates the nervous
oxytocin?
system, right?
Okay,
So it
that
regulates
regulates.
the nervous system. And so those are
Okay.
those other things that I refer to. And exercise is a huge one. Nature is an interesting one because there is some research that says that it resonates at its levels of energy. And if you're resonating like this, but the tree is resonating like this, the thing about energy is when it comes in contact with one another, they want to even out to one another.
Don't
Yeah.
horses have an amazing ability to emotionally regulate humans?
Yep.
Because they're so in sync that their heart rates get in alignment and then you enter in and you have that same kind of response.
So a lot of people would say that connection with your pets is the same, right? It's another layer of that,
Sure.
but they
Yeah.
co-regulate with you as well.
Well, a little plug that I will just say, and this is related to it, but we are having a speed friending event in July.
Oh, fun.
So think of like speed dating. We're doing a speed
Yes.
friending event as a way for people in our community to find your friend,
I
find your
love that.
person. And so that's kind of a little side note, and we'll be
Yes,
talking
plug
more about
that.
that. But it sounds like it doesn't have to be somebody who just gets it. So I have a question, and I think this falls into the fight or flight. But let's say, for example, I get a call from the school nurse or just the school, and my heart starts racing. And
Yep.
I have read a little bit and I've heard of the term emotional flooding because I have this reaction like, oh, there's something that has happened, right? It's like triggering something for me. Would that be emotional flooding? And would that fall into the steps that you were talking about? Not
Yeah.
disassociation, but maybe more fight or flight?
Well,
That.
emotional flooding is when you're flooded with emotion that kind of outweighs your resources at the moment. So you don't have
Right.
external connection resources and you don't have enough internal resources.
Okay.
But what you're talking about, when you've had an experience like you've had, when you've had to raise children that are other abled and at a moment's notice you could be called for anything, right? There is a very high likelihood that you're having a trauma response anytime that phone rings now, right?
Okay.
So
Sure.
it becomes a cue for the next thing, like Julian is having an extended seizure and all of this is going to happen to me again. And your body is actually re-experiencing what it had done. During traumatic experience, your timekeeper in the brain, in the medial prefrontal cortex, it goes offline. So it doesn't know when this happened in time and space. And that cue suddenly makes you feel like you did 15 months ago, literally, in your physical body. That would be my guess. But it also could just be flooding. It could just be like, oh my gosh, I was working. I was already thinking about the 20 things I'm going to have to do. And now this thing kind of is the piece that threw me over and I'm flooded and I don't have enough resource to take care of myself.
But those are very different, I think. Those are very
They are
different.
very different. They are very
They are very different. So I think you're right. It probably was more of a trauma response.
I think what we as extreme caregivers are experiencing is the constant trauma. I mean, every time the school calls, every time something goes a little bit awry for an appointment. So I guess my question to you is, how can we possibly live there, right? And what can we do to maybe recognize it first? Oh, I am in this. I am experiencing a trauma response. How do I get out of it?
This is really an interesting conversation because you could go several ways with this. So I'll just kind of give the disclaimer that other clinicians might say something different here. But I've known enough people who have had to parent difficult children to know the entire experience itself is a complex trauma. Full stop.
Yep.
Trauma does not mean you will have a trauma disorder.
Mhm.
So PTSD or acute stress disorders are kind of in the diagnostic manual. That really means that your nervous system didn't regulate well when it happened and now has kind of formulated some really bad habits moving forward. So I don't think that everybody has PTSD that has a child with some sort of disability, but I do think that the experience is so heavy that it would be silly to call it anything but traumatic. It just is. So, knowing that you're working within that context, you're more vulnerable than other parents to experience hypervigilance, which is a symptom of a stress disorder, which means you're on all the time scanning your environment for when's the next shoe.
All night.
Yep. When's the next shoe going to drop?
We have to have an ear open, and especially when they're ill. My son has lung conditions, and you've got to be able to hear the slightest little thing to prop him up and to get what's.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So in that context, I would say get support. You personally are traumatized.
Right.
This has nothing to do with the kid now. This is just your psyche is under duress. And are you getting the services?
I've heard people say that when you have a child with medical complexity or rare disease, to the extent that we do, caregiving should be a diagnosis in itself.
Yes.
Right?
That's basically what I'm saying. I'm saying
Yeah.
it's traumatic. So something's going to happen. Will you have a
Mhm.
trauma disorder? Maybe not,
Right.
but you're going to have something. And you need extra resource.
And it's like in the airplane, they say, put
Yep.
the oxygen mask on yourself first and then put it on your child. Yes, but that's so true because we need to go to therapy. We need to have our community. We need to get in nature. We need to be connected with animals or whatever our things are. But yeah.
Yeah. I would emphasize it even more for this context because self-care is important for all of us. Doing for yourself, putting the mask on first is there for all of us. But what you're saying is, yeah, but my kid needs the mask all the time. So like, I don't even have 2 seconds. Then you make them because the plate is only so big. You got to decide what comes off and goes on, or it will decide for you. It will break. There is no way around this. So I would come at it intentionally. I would get resources. I would get therapists. I would have my own group of people that I connect with. I would have time for myself. And I would know that by putting that time in for me, I'm actually putting it in for them because I'm a better person to do all the things that I'm asking myself to be doing.
That's so interesting because I have sometimes people say to me, because they know I'm so busy, I'm a single mom too, I work full time, and they say, how do you have time to sneak away at this girl's weekend cabin? Or how do you have time to go hiking every day or walking? And I say, it's just required. I have to have these things in my life to keep my life sane. And if that means the other things kind of fall to the wayside, then that has to happen because my self-care, I'm very aware, I've known this for a long time. It is imperative that I pay attention to it. And I'm not saying I can do it all the time. I'm not going to spas. I'm not spending tons of money on massages and things like that because there's so many ways to do it naturally, or hot shower with a candle or a little steamer thing for $5 at Target, whatever.
I think it's an important point that people ask that question because we're programmed to ask that question. Because women in particular, and I'm sure within your context, parents with kids with high medical needs, you don't get to be selfish. You're supposed to be completely selfless. There is a programming that we have that there is a definition of the best version of this kind of parent. You got to call BS because there isn't. And you will do this however pretty or ugly you need to do it. And as long as it's working for you and your kid, that's great. And people are going to ask you, how do you have time? Because they are working off this narrative that it should look a certain way. I'm not an advocate for shooting on yourself. I don't think it's a good idea. So if you have to break that mold and say, yeah, I don't wash my dishes every night, just so you know, because that's what it is. That question comes from a place of there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it. How are you doing this? How are you balancing all the things you have to do with this other extra frivolous thing? And what you just said to her was, no, running is a have to do thing, like a brush your teeth thing. Every 3 months going with my girls is a have to do thing.
I think that's an important distinction, the levels of the shoulding versus the necessity to survival. I think those are two very different things.
And that's different culturally too, right?
Totally.
But holding that idea that this is something that I know that I am supposed to do versus this is a non-negotiable. This must
right.
happen before any meetings happen, before anything else happens, before I have to do this thing.
It's counterculture to say that self-care is a have to thing. It's counterculture.
And in the workplace, it's not like you can say, I have to go outside and take a walk.
Yeah.
That's not acceptable.
Yeah. Yeah. In those contexts, it gets really difficult.
So we don't have a lot of time, but what about gender?
Well,
Right?
I will say this. There are some very big distinctions between how women and men are allowed to emote in American culture. Men have to have it all together, or they can be angry, and those are their options. Women have several other options that we can do, but only to a certain extent, because we got to
But
hold
only
it
some are
together.
acceptable.
And only some are acceptable. So I do think that men struggle, to ask for help because it doesn't fit the you're supposed to have it all together conditioning that they've gone through. And if they didn't learn any kind of articulation around emotion, then when they're stressed, when they're sad, when they're grieving, when they're overwhelmed, it's all anger. It all translates into a version of frustration, anger, irritability. And it's unfair, right? I have a son, so I don't like it. I don't like it. That's what they think, that those are the options. Boys don't cry. Not fair. Not fair.
I want to shift to something really practical. I have the privilege to have both private insurance and Medicaid. And especially when you're a single mom, you are a sole caregiver of your child. A lot of people are on Medicaid. I mean, I've got my son in therapy, we're in marriage therapy, I have my own therapist.
Yep.
We are no stranger to therapy in this house. But for someone that wants to have therapy as a form of self-care, how do they do it? Especially if somebody's on Medicaid, right? What is something tangible that we can give them?
Yeah. Well, there are more options, but it's still underused. And there's not enough of us therapists to go around for how much mental health issues there really is. So it's a great question. I would say that most urban communities will have some version of a free mental health option. You can go to your county, they usually will know, and they usually have a front door family service phone line. That's where I would start. But to be honest, what I'm going to say here is a little controversial. Do not go to AI for therapy. Bad idea. Real bad to ask your Claude, ChatGPT, whatever you use. Do not do that. But do ask it in your area. Are there free mental health resources and what are they? Because it will find it. It's better than Google.
I want to dig into this for a second.
Yeah.
Tell us why it is important to not use AI for it.
Because artificial intelligence isn't human and it's not picking up on the undercurrents that I'm talking about. So it hears or sees what you type, but it doesn't understand the context of why you would be typing that.
And
right?
we all know how we've misinterpreted an email or
exactly. And it's already happened. There are people that have taken their own lives, or as we say in the mental health field, they died by suicide because they were speaking with an AI that said, well, these are options, which is not untrue, but just very dangerous.
This is a whole new territory for you as a therapist, because I went through an ending of a relationship recently, and my girlfriend, who does it all the time, plugged in all the information. And then she sent me a text that was pages long. And she said, Jen, this is what I think is going on with him and this and that. And I read it and I was like, wow, this is really kind of accurate. So it was kind of shocking.
But resist the temptation.
Yes, sounds like it. I want to give you 30 seconds, Dr. Natalie, to speak directly to the caregiver who has never asked for help, who doesn't think they deserve it, who is listening right now and wondering if any of this is for them. What would you say to them?
I would say, of course, it's for you. And of course, your body is going to tell you something different. So please just know if it's feeling uncomfortable, all that means is it's a growth edge. Anything we try new, we feel kind of weird about. So reaching out, asking for help feels weird. And that probably means it's a place for you to grow. That's all.
That sounds perfect.
Discomfort equals growth, right?
Yeah, always.
You have to go
Both
through
are
it
true.
to get
Mhm.
through it, right? You have to
Mhm.
get through it to get through it.
One more thing, Dr. Natalie, can you just real quick talk about Love Your Story? Is that?
So learntoloveyourstory.com was a COVID baby. Didn't we all have one version of or another of those? So I created this coaching business for women in midlife because I knew we were isolated, and I knew that a lot of us were in this stage of life where our hormones are going down and our stress resiliency goes down with it. And yet we're still expecting the same amount of stuff from ourselves. And I wanted to offer free resources, free educational material. The podcast is a version of that. I have online videos, online downloads you can do for self-care, like we were talking about.
Learn to love your story.
We will post all of your resources in our show notes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been such a great, compassionate, and clarifying and educational and all the things show today. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate it and look forward to hearing more of your podcast episodes. And
Yeah,
thank you
thanks.
so much for taking time out of your busy
No.
schedule. If you liked today's topic or have comments, questions, or thoughts on what else you would like us to cover, please visit rarelyfamiliar.com or connect with us on all the social channels. Resources will be listed in our show notes, and we'll be back next time with another discussion around living life successfully with rare medical complexities. Thanks for joining us on the journey.